Bonjour et bienvenue à notre rendez-vous quotidien pour la presse en ligne et en direct sur EBS. Nous sommes aujourd'hui le jeudi 8 avril. Nous avons une unique annonce à vous faire aujourd'hui pour laquelle je passe la parole à Anna. Anna, you have the floor. Okay, we seem to have a connection issue with Anna today, so I will read out the announcement myself. 1 year ago today, the European Commission and the High Representative set out plans for a targeted EU response to support our partner countries' efforts in tackling the coronavirus pandemic. Combining, we seem to have a problem with the sound. Sorry, we will interrupt until we can solve the issue. Okay, is it working now? So it seems, voilà, ça semble remarcher. Alors je vais essayer de repasser la parole à Anna, si c'est possible. Nous n'arrivons pas à avoir de connexion avec Anna, donc je recommence. So, 1 year ago today, the European Commission and the High Representative set out plans for a targeted EU response to support our partner countries' efforts in tackling the coronavirus pandemic, combining resources from the EU, its member states, and European financial institutions as Team Europe. As Team Europe, we have mobilized over 40 billion euros in support for more than 130 countries across the world. And today we are pleased to announce that more than 26 billion euros have already been dispersed. This is 65% of the overall package and exceeds the original 20 billion pledged 1 year ago, demonstrating that the EU stands by its partners in these difficult times. This collective global support is focused on emergency response and immediate humanitarian needs, strengthening health, water, sanitation, and nutrition systems, and mitigating the social and economic consequences of the pandemic. In parallel, Team Europe is also working to ensure global equitable access to COVID-19 vaccines, and this is why we are one of the leading donors of COVAX, with over 2.2 billion euros and supporting the rollout of vaccination campaigns, including in partnership with the WHO. You can find more information in our press release, including the tables with detailed information on the funding per regions and countries. So, I see that we have a slightly difficult situation in the sense that the floor channel is not working at the moment, but you can listen to us either in English or French interpretation. I assume that when I'm speaking English, you hear my own voice, and the French interpretation if you prefer French. Okay, so we will, since there is sound available in any case, we will continue the midday briefing and inform you as soon as the floor works. Patrizia is saying, well, it seems to be, okay, you seem to have different types of issues. So, Christian, nous passons à ta...
Okay, Christian, let us move on to your question. Terribly sorry again about these technical problems. Christian. Yes, I hope it's working. I hope you can hear me. Fine. I wanted to come back to what has become known as Sofagate. Terribly sorry. The European Parliament has just reacted through all the major groups to criticize the lack of unity shown by the two institutions in Ankara. So my question is, you in the Commission, did you have the impression that President Erdogan was trying to humiliate President von der Leyen and the European Commission by the way in which the Commission was treated? Secondly, everybody is talking about the protocol, contrary to what you were saying yesterday, Eric, that in the international domain, the President of the Council is in first place and the Commission, the President of the Commission lower in the protocol ranking. This has been confirmed too in Politico. So if we take that as read. My question would be, it was not organized by the Brussels protocol, but by the EU representation in Ankara. So I would just like to ask whether the blame lies with the EU representation in Ankara and with the ambassador, Mayor Landroots, who is a close collaborator of President von der Leyen, who was sent to Ankara for very specific reasons, which are close relations between the EU and Ankara. Do you take it that he is at fault and that he should be removed from his functions? Well, you managed to put a number of questions on this issue, which, let me remind you, is not something we wanted to put in the public domain. During visits of this type, incidents can happen, and as I said yesterday, the attitude of the President of the Commission was to continue the meeting and to put across the message that the messages that the European Union needed to put across. When we talk about a sign of disunity, let me just refer you back to the press conference which the President of the Council and the President of the Commission gave jointly at the end of the visit. And if you look on the social media, and for example, the President of the Commission's Twitter account and the photos we put on it, you will see that all this showed a perfectly normal and successful visit. So I think we have to focus on the message we want to put across, which is the message set out in the declaration at the end of the European Council on the 25th of March. And then as regards the protocol issues, I'm sorry to have to repeat what I said yesterday, which is that in protocol terms, the President of the Commission is treated in the same way as the Commission, as President of the Council. They're treated in the same way, and you can see any number of pictures at such events, such high-level events, showing that they're sitting side by side. Now, there may be issues of precedence. One may speak before the other. One may be seated a bit closer than other. But these are details with which we have absolutely no problem, of course. And then coming to the way in which it was organized, I have no comment on that. These are matters for internal organization. The President, as I said yesterday, would like to have these issues analyzed so that when the next such visit takes place, that we will not face the same type of issue during the actual visit itself. So, are there any other questions on this issue? Jorge.
Morning, Eric. I hope you can hear me well.
Yes.
Yes. Good. It's still on this, and precisely, well, first of all, I would like to know if you're satisfied with President Michel's explanation on Facebook. I don't know if his team added something else in talks with you, or do you think that he should explain better why he didn't wait until President von der Leyen had an appropriate and equal place for the meeting? And then secondly, on the involvement of your protocol services, because I mean, given that this is an important matter, it's not an issue of internal arrangements only. So what yesterday you said that they were not involved because of COVID restrictions, but I mean, given how important was this visit and the how high-level meetings are prepared, especially the face-to-face time, I find difficult to understand why your protocol service were not involved. I mean, you could have emails, you could have video conferences, you could have calls to prepare such an important meeting face-to-face. So why your protocol services were not involved, and who took that decision? Because I guess someone decided not to let them participate. And secondly, I would like to know if anybody in the Commission's protocol service on von der Leyen's cabinet, I don't know, for example, his diplomatic advisor, went through the details of the face-to-face meeting before it took place. Thank you.
Thank you, Jorge. I'm afraid I'm going to disappoint you on your questions on the protocol service. I have said everything I had to say on this yesterday. I confirmed that the President and her entourage are very strict when it comes to the size of delegations that take part in missions at the moment. Let me remind you that the President is not vaccinated, nor are the members of her team, and therefore she is taking rightly all the necessary precautions in terms of ensuring that risks are minimized when it comes to the health situation, and that is perfectly legitimate. So that is the reason why the protocol service was not involved. And as I remind you, we have a delegation on site, and therefore preparations were done through that channel. On your first question concerning the statement by the President of the European Council, which of course we welcome. Let me say simply that we have no further comment to make. I think it is extremely important that the European Union shows unity when it is dealing with third countries and partners. And I think that on substance, the message which both the President of the European Council and of the European Commission gave to the Turkish authorities was precisely characterized by its unity, its frankness, and the willingness to look at how to improve the relationship with Turkey, provided that Turkey continues in its de-escalation efforts. Jorge, you have a follow-up.
Yes, thank you, Eric. A quick follow-up. I mean, of course, the explanations of the health concerns of the President are very legitimate and I mean, obvious, but you can prepare all these things in a remote way, with calls, with video conferences and stuff. How many chairs are going to be in the room? 1, 2, 3 chairs, things like that. And these visits, every detail matters. I mean, this is obvious for protocol services. So why these things were not run through your services, or I don't know, someone from the diplomatic team before it happened? Why you trusted blindly Michel's team?
Jorge, I believe that you need to understand. I mean, we are the EU, right? And therefore, it is clear that we try to work through different types of channels depending on the circumstances. And in this case, we were working through the delegation. As you rightly say, the protocol service of the European Council was also there. It's not a question of trusting blindly. I mean, this is Team Europe. I was just making an announcement about that before. Secondly, no, certain things I'm sure cannot be fixed simply through video calls and things like that. You have to be sometimes on site. I'm not an expert in protocol. I think that it's a career in itself, and it has many subtleties. All I can say is that once again, there was an incident, okay, but the President decided to continue the meeting nevertheless and to make the point. And I think that, quite frankly, this is what people should be focusing on, the relationship with Turkey. Hans.
Yes, thank you. Just a quick follow-up on this one. I still don't get this, because why the protocol service was not involved in any way. I mean, were there any discussions between the Commission's protocol service and the Council protocol service ahead of the visit? I mean, they could have also taken place in Brussels, knowing that the Commission's protocol service was not participating. Or when you're saying it's not a question of we are trusting blindly because we are the EU, we are one team. So has there been any message been delivered directly to the Council's protocol service to express protest, because somehow there has been either a mistake been happening, or there was a deliberate decision to accept this sort of protocol setting with the two chairs? And then later I would have a different question on Northern Ireland, so I would come back on that later. Thank you.
Thank you. I have really nothing to add to the discussion on protocol service. I said everything I had to say yesterday. The President has asked her team to ensure that arrangements are made so that such situations do not arise in the future, and I will leave it at that. Samuel.
Oui, bonjour.
Good day, Eric. Just a follow-up on this issue. Now, the Turks, through their Foreign Affairs Ministry, said that there was no error and that they followed the requests of the EU in terms of how the chairs were laid out. Is it more a mistake by the Council Protocol Service, or are you questioning the Turkish version of events? Samuel, I have said everything I've had to say on the visit yesterday, that 50-minute long meeting. So there was a 50-minute long question and answer session yesterday on that, and I have nothing to add to that session. And I think now it's time to move on to another phase in our conference today. So in political and diplomatic life, you sometimes have these incidents, yes, but you need to be able to deal with them as they arise. That happened during the visit yesterday, and we moved on afterwards. Griselda, please.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you. I just wanted to know, as Mr. Michel accepts that there was an incident, but he says that in agreement with Mrs. von der Leyen, he decided not to react in order not to undermine the visit. I'd just like to know whether you can confirm this version. And then, well, Mrs. von der Leyen is the first woman to be president of the Commission. I would just like to know how she feels about this, and whether she believes that perhaps there was a problem on the side of President Erdogan, but Mr. Michel didn't even stand up. Is there not a problem of macho attitude here? Well, Giselle, I explained yesterday in detail how things played out from the point of view of the President of the European Commission. She found herself in a situation in terms of protocol to which she reacted in the way which European citizens expect from their political office holders. In other words, not to let this situation undermine the dialogue with her, in this case, interlocutors, President Erdogan in this case. The rest are a matter of details which have no real impact on how we work with the Turkish authorities, and that is how we want to present this matter. Derek.
Eric, vous m'entendez?
Je t'entends, vas-y.
I can hear you. Yes, please go ahead.
Eric.
Yesterday you said that the presidents of both institutions have the same protocol status, but there is a document from 2011 which sets an order whereby the President of the Council arrives before the President of the Commission. So I just want to try and get my head around this At the beginning, you spoke about a protocol incident. But if I read this interinstitutional agreement, I don't see any protocol incident. So, simply speaking, do you think that the protocol was respected or not? I would like to repeat what I said yesterday. I'd be delighted to repeat what I said yesterday. There is a protocol ranking. The president of the European Commission is the president of a European institution, just like the presidents of the other European institutions. They have the same status. So she is a full member of the Council, at the same level as the heads of state and government. The agreement you're talking about is one that talks about an order. So it sets an order between the different institutions and their representatives. But that doesn't mean that in a meeting with a third country, that the president of the European Commission is just part of a delegation, the part of the delegation led by the Council. She's there as his equal. This mission was announced by both institutions together, and when there are summits with third countries, the presidents of both institutions are sitting side by side, facing their counterpart, whatever third country we're talking about. So that's what I said yesterday, and I just maintain what I said yesterday. I'd just like to add one more thing, because you are talking about this incident. We're not actually focusing on this. For us, there was no proactive declaration made by us. We're just replying to questions asked by you on the basis of images released from the meeting. But if you actually read the President's declaration, if you look at what she puts on her Twitter account, you'll see no mention has been made of this event, this incident. So I don't think we should exaggerate the importance of this incident. I'm just trying to explain what happened. So you're the president of an institution faced with an incident during this mission. We just want to clarify things for you, and we're just going to try and clarify things and ensure that the missions take place under the aegis of a joint vision that we have set forward. Georgi, please.
Oui, bonjour Eric.
Yes, hello, Eric. I hope you can hear me. Mr. Borrell was humiliated in Russia, and Mrs. von der Leyen in Turkey. I am strongly in favor of Europe. So what I would like to ask is, are you going to make sure that this doesn't happen again? Can you confirm that? Georgi, I am not entirely sure I understood your question. The message which we put across to the Turkish authorities was very clear and very detailed. The fact that there was an event during this visit does not take from the fact that it was a successful visit in terms of dialogue with Turkey, with a view to putting across to our Turkish partners our positions on various issues of the European Union, and to listen to those of Turkey. So from this standpoint, I don't see any problem. Do you have a follow-up question?
Anglais, mais je pense que c'est.
Well, I think the fact is that you didn't understand my question, so I take the blame for that. So let me put a question as follows. For matters where protocol comes into play, but where it's not about protocol, but the fact is that the European Union was humiliated in Russia and then in Turkey in a very short time span. So is there any message you have to the effect that you have drawn the appropriate conclusions and that it won't happen again? Well, Georgi, clearly you didn't hear what I answered to the previous question, which I repeated several times yesterday, which is that the President has asked her team to make all necessary contacts and take all necessary measures to ensure that such visits in future will take place without a repetition of this incident. I think that's very clear. Philippe.
Oui, bonjour, merci.
Thank you very much, Eric. Perhaps to just move on a bit with this. My question is as follows. At the end of the day, is the problem the fact that it was a protocol incident, or is it the fact that it shines a light on a more fundamental issue, which is gender inequality? And if that's the case, maybe something could be done to maybe seize this moment and do something with it. Thank you very much. Let me remind you of what I said yesterday. The President of the European Commission took the opportunity to insist and stress during the debate on the Turkish announcement to withdraw from the Istanbul Convention and on the issue of women's rights in particular. And I will leave it there.
Good afternoon. Sorry, I want to go away from Sofagate to the concrete results of the meeting. Can we have already some details? What are the milestones? Yes, we know a bit about the refugees, and but concerning the research or the maritime activities of Turkey in the Eastern Med, are there some concrete results on which we can build? Could you elaborate on that one?
Thank you, Hans-Uwe. Look, the mission took place the day before yesterday. We give you a full debrief. In fact, the presidents of the two institutions gave you a full debrief. You cannot reasonably expect that 2 days after the visit, we have substantive new developments to announce. This is a process. It's the beginning of a process, as the President said. That will lead us, in particular, to the European Council in June. So you need to work with us until that moment, because it is at that point in time, during the European Council in June, that we will make a further assessment of the situation. Mose.
I have perhaps a bit more questions about the same thing. I mean, I must say, looking at the video film from this incident, as you call it, looks very awkward and humiliating for the President von der Leyen. And I wonder, how do we know that EU citizens really expect her or President Michel not to react stronger against such an incident which happened? That is my question.
I'm sorry, I don't understand your question.
My question is because I think you said before, I mean, to the other questions, that President von der Leyen reacted calmly, in fact she did that, in order not to, let's say, blow up the meeting. But it was a very awkward situation for her, I understand. And I'm not sure that European citizens expect her to react in this way, facing such humiliation by the Turkish host.
Well, I mean, of course, you are perfectly entitled to your own judgment, but I believe that the President made a judgment call on the spur of the moment, which was to put first and foremost the long-term interests of the European Union, which imply that we need to discuss the issues with Turkey, the issues that are of common concern. Now, I'm sure that there are 1,000 different views as to what would have been the right way to react, and that is perfectly legitimate. But as it turns out, the President took the decision to continue the discussions, and I think that this is perfectly legitimate. Philippe. Philippe, je t'en prie.
Philippe, go ahead, please. I hope you can hear me. I hope it works. Fine. I wasn't fast enough to ask you a follow-up question. When you say that during this event, the President took the opportunity to raise the issue of Turkey's withdrawal from the Istanbul Convention and on the issue of drawing attention to the issue of women's rights, do you think this is an appropriate time also to discuss this at EU level to take advantage of the momentum? Well, my comment related to the specific context in which the discussions took place. But of course, you know our clear position, the President's clear position on the Istanbul Convention in general and on women's rights in general. And the President's position in terms of this convention concerns all the members, the state parties which signed the convention, not just Turkey. Christian.
Oui, merci.
Thank you very much. Just 2 points. Madame von der Leyen spoke about the Istanbul Convention and that she said that several EU member states haven't ratified it. You can ask Turkey to come back to the Istanbul Convention, but it's difficult to oblige them. Now, on that meeting in Istanbul, both presidents spoke about financing Syrian refugees. So the Syrian and Afghan refugees that are in Turkey at the moment. Now, it's true that the European leaders said they were going to continue that financing. A figure emerged yesterday that spoke about between 2 to 4 billion euros for financing. I'm just wondering if that was negotiated in concrete terms in Ankara. Did one of the two European presidents put a figure on the table? And I believe it's the Commission that has the figures. I'm just wondering if you put a figure on the table. Now, I've heard that there's no line on Turkey in the upcoming MFF, and we have to work with what we have, and member states are going to have to contribute to this financing in order for it to continue. Could you clarify? Then another point of detail. You said that Ms. von der Leyen expressed her concerns. The problem is that Madame von der Leyen's concerns, well, Mr. Michel didn't actually show any solidarity for his Commission counterpart. That's very embarrassing, and you can't pull the wool over people's eyes on that. That was my own point of view. It wasn't actually a question. Christian, on that final point, I just want to put things in the correct order. The President said nothing. She said nothing. You've asked questions. That's all. It's normal that the President of an institution that represents this institution, it's normal that she feels that it's part of her role to ensure that this institution be treated according to all established procedures. That's all. As to the rest, believe me, from our point of view, there's no reason why we should be discussing this for an hour in the press room. Now, on the convention, or the Istanbul Convention, if I've understood your question, you were talking about different treatment between countries when it comes to ratification. I'll just hand the floor over to my colleague. Thank you, Christian, for your question. Violence against women and girls is not to be tolerated. women need a legal framework to be protected. That's what the President said. When it comes to the accession of the EU to the Istanbul Convention, this which prevents and fights against violence against women and domestic violence, well, these are key priorities. They're key priorities for the European Commission. The EU signed the Istanbul Convention in June 2017. Since then, we have been working very closely with the Council in order to ensure that the EU accedes to this convention. Now, the EU is very committed to the EU's joining the convention. And we are pushing forward to fight gender-based violence. Thank you very much, Anna. And then when it comes to the financing facility for refugees, I don't know if you can connect. If you're there, Anna, yes, please.
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me. Christian, as you know, we have already contracted the 6 billion to help support refugees and the support facilities in Turkey. We have already spent about 4.1 billion. The European Union has always recognized Turkey's generosity and its efforts in terms of welcoming 4 million refugees, as you pointed out, 3.6 million Syrian refugees and 400,000 Afghan refugees. We have always recognized the fact that there is the need will continue for some time on the ground. And I would just point out, too, that the EU leaders in December at the last December summit stated that the European Union would be prepared to continue providing support for refugees in Turkey. After the last summit in March, we will come forward with a financing proposal as they requested, and this with a view to continuing to provide funding for the refugees in Turkey, in Jordan, Lebanon, and other countries of the region. Now, your question was pretty precise about the discussions between our presidents and President Erdogan. I think there was a general discussion about cooperation, including supporting refugees, and I will come back with a proposal. As regards the level and the instruments, the amounts and the instruments we use, this is something which has to be seen with the Member States and with the European Parliament. That's all I can say really at this stage in the process. Thank you very much. You have a follow-up question? Yes, on the Istanbul Convention, but my question was rather different. Yesterday you were saying that the European Union has put fundamental rights as a top priority, the Istanbul Convention, women's rights. This is one of the subjects, and in fact, a subject which was clearly indicated to President Erdogan that without agreement on this, that the member states would not be able to continue cooperation, that he had an effort to still to be made. Now, the problem with the Istanbul Convention is that 4 EU member states have not signed this or not ratified the convention. Since that is the case, the fact that Turkey has withdrawn from the convention, can this be seen as something which can block the whole process? That was my question. And then let me continue following up on what Anna said, the range of 2 to 4 billion. This is not at all on the table. There is a proposal, but the funding, the level are not yet being discussed. So it seems to be premature to propose such figures. Yes, you're right. It is premature. Let me refer you back to the very general statements made on this issue by the President of the European Commission when she raised this point during the press conference, which took place at the end of the visit. On the first point, let me give the floor to my colleague, but let me remind you that we have said that there are a series of points under discussion with our Turkish partners, and that we, of course, need to look at and assess all the points. It's not just one individual point on its own. It's all the issues which came up for discussion, which will be taken on board in our next assessment for the European Council in June. Okay, Georgi, coming back to you.
Oui.
Thank you very much, Eric. Now, I'm not coming back, not because you said you don't, I'm not listening to you. I am listening to you. Now, on the Istanbul Convention, now the country I know best is Bulgaria. The Constitutional Court in Bulgaria decided that Bulgaria will not ratify the Istanbul Convention, that we should forget it. And I don't recall any declaration by the EU on this. What's clear is that we are calling for the ratification of the Istanbul Convention by all signatories, whether they be within the EU or beyond.
Georgi, dernier follow-up.
So, final follow-up, Georgi. The Constitutional Court of a member state said that this convention will never be ratified in that member state. And you've nothing to say. Can you confirm that? Georgi, what do you want me to say? How can I be clearer? We are calling on all signatories of the Istanbul Convention to ratify it. Thank you.
Bien, je ne vois pas d'autres questions sur ces sujets.
I don't see any other questions on this subject today. So let me go back to Hans. Hans, I believe, had a question on another subject.
Yes, thank you. I have a question on Northern Ireland and the violence there following the whole question about the Northern Ireland protocol, etc. Do you have a comment on that?
Thank you very much, Hans. We, of course, condemn in the strongest possible terms the acts of violence that have occurred in Northern Ireland over the past days. Nobody has anything to gain from this. We call on all those involved to refrain immediately from these violent acts. Thank you. Are there other questions for us today? Yes, I see other hands raised. I move to Tommaso.
Yes, hi, Eric. Good afternoon. My question is on vaccines. So, following the last evaluation by the EMA on the vaccine AstraZeneca, some member states are now limiting the use of AstraZeneca, while many people are refusing the shot. So, if the company now respects the deliveries, there might be a surplus of AstraZeneca doses in Europe. Is the Commission thinking about modifying the contract to avoid this excess of unwanted doses? And what can the governments do with the doses they already bought? Can they resell them to other EU countries or extra EU countries? And does the European Commission recommend to donate AstraZeneca doses to low-income countries? Thank you.
Thank you, Tommaso. I think your question has two dimensions. One, which is contractual, which I will ask Stéphane to answer. The other is more in terms of sharing or donating vaccines, which is in the portfolio of Anna. And as you know, we are working on a mechanism on this. But first, let's move to Stéphane, and then we'll move to Anna.
Thank you very much. Maybe the first thing I would like to say or to stress is that the public health of the European citizens is a priority for us, and this is one of the reasons why we have always insisted, also in this context, on a scientific approach. Now, when you look at EMA, which is the independent agency of scientists checking the safety and the effectiveness of the vaccine, you see that in yesterday's opinion they've been very clear. The benefits outweigh the risks. So I think this is extremely important to bear in mind. We are, of course, aware that vaccination is a national competence and that member states may decide to follow stricter approaches when it comes to vaccines. This being said, vaccination decisions in one member state can affect, of course, those of other member states. Commissioner Kyriakides at yesterday's meeting called for a coherent approach. It would of course make sense that on the basis of the same set of evidence, similar decisions are taken in the different member states, but in the end this remains a decision for the member states. Now, we continue to work on this. This is not the end of the process, I would say. Commissioner Kyriakides asked member states to task experts to work with EMA to develop a coherent approach across the EU based on further guidance and analysis of the studies on the age group. So, as far as we're concerned, the contract with AstraZeneca is ongoing. We expect from the company, of course, as we have already stressed on several occasions, the delivery of a sufficient number of doses within the necessary deadlines or delivery deadlines. And so we continue to follow the situation. We continue to follow this in the context of what we call pharmacovigilance, monitoring the situation together with EMA and the ECDC. Thank you.
Thank you, Stefan. I will ask Anna to come in on the donation mechanism.
Hi, many thanks for the question. Maybe I would just like to precise in the context of our support for COVAX that, as you probably know, a precondition for COVAX to be able to actually supply vaccines is that they have WHO emergency use listing. So, of course, COVAX follows the criteria in that sense of the WHO. And maybe just to recall that the AstraZeneca were listed for emergency use by the WHO on the 15th of February. And as regards to the sharing, I think that the two basic principles are that, of course, EU would donate or share or transfer vaccines that were secured under the EU's advanced purchase agreement. So the same that we would share for the European citizens, we would be open, of course, to share for the citizens of our partner countries, following exactly as Stefan has explained, the same procedures in terms of monitoring the security and the efficacy of the vaccines. And again, here I think that Stefan made very clear that we follow the EMA's scientific opinion on this. And just to precise that, of course, also the sharing is done on the basis of a voluntary principle by the member states. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Tommaso, you have a follow-up.
Me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Yes, thank you. Just a quick follow-up for Stefan. We are talking about millions and millions of doses that many countries already ordered to AstraZeneca, and that maybe following this new evaluation, which changed something in respect to what had been stated in the past by the EMA, some countries may decide also not to buy anymore these doses, or maybe to reduce the number. Is this possible? Can the countries that already ordered doses from AstraZeneca reduce or withdraw their order? Thank you.
Stefan.
Thank you very much. But again, I would like to reiterate what EMA has said yesterday. EMA said that the benefits outweigh the risks linked to the use of these vaccines. So I think that's a very important issue to bear in mind. The situation remains obviously of utmost interest to all of us, to EMA, to the Commission, to the Member States. We continue to follow this. So I think it's a little bit premature at this stage to go into speculation as to what could possibly happen in terms of of not ordering or ordering. I believe that the situation is now followed up by EMA, by Commission, by Member States, in line with, I would say, the scientific approaches that are out there, and I think we have to keep a very close eye on that in the context of our so-called pharmacovigilance. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there other questions for us today on vaccines? Please only keep your hand raised if it is on vaccines. Raf.
The EMA issued its advice yesterday, and still we have governments taking all kinds of measures that are not in line with it. And the EMA was supposed to be the gold standard for all these issues. Is the Commission disappointed that the EMA gets so blatantly disregarded by member states? And also, do you think that these government actions create an issue of trust if people across the EU see how member states react in such a different way? Thank you.
Stefan.
Thank you. First, let me come back to your last comment on the issue of trust. The issue of trust is extremely important. We want to avoid, of course, vaccination hesitancy, and this is one of the reasons why from the beginning the vaccines, the development of the vaccines are closely followed by our colleagues from the European Medicines Agency that closely follow the effectiveness and the safety of these vaccines. And so this assessment, this serious assessment by an independent agency allows us to build the trust of the citizens. So that's one very important thing. As far as the decisions that member states have taken or may take with as a follow-up to the opinion of the European Medicines Agency, I would like to recall what I've already said a few times in this press room, that is that the EMA is doing indeed the assessment of the safety and the effectiveness of the vaccine, makes opinions, issues recommendations on this basis. But of course, vaccination policy is a matter of national competence. Member states can apply the vaccination policy taking into account the needs they have, the circumstances they have to face in the different member states. So member states can decide to go to be stricter, to apply stricter approaches than those which have been proposed by the European Medicines Agency. But of course, as I said before, and also following the request of Commissioner Kyriakides, the work continues to be monitored with the member states so that we can keep a very close eye on the further developments, again, in the context of our pharmacovigilance. And finally, yes, what I would like to say is that the vaccination policies, as I said before, are indeed a matter of national competence, but the Commission obviously always stands ready to offer support as much as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. We continue on the issue of vaccines. Eric.
On the Russian vaccine, Sputnik V, Germany has said that it will enter bilateral negotiations with Russia about this vaccine. And according to the health minister, Mr. Spahn, the Commission apparently has said that it does not wish to participate. Could you confirm this information? Do you have any comments on this? Is this the end of the common strategy, and is it the end of the advanced purchase agreements? Thank you. Let me give the floor to Stefan. But I just want to say once again that there may be different approaches. We have a European vaccine strategy, which is based on negotiations with a number of businesses, companies which have been identified. The fact that member states may decide to purchase vaccines from other manufacturers, and that has already been the case with, for example, with Hungary, that does not mean the end of the European strategy. These are two different things. And therefore, the reply to your last question is a clear no. As regards the other questions, let me give the floor to Stefan. Thank you very much. We are not well placed to comment on comments, but just to pick up on the point that Eric made, where we are talking about vaccines which are not part of our vaccine strategy or vaccine portfolio, well, the member states are entitled to negotiate or to sign contracts with these vaccine manufacturers who are not covered by our portfolio, as was the case in Hungary, for example. But where we are talking about a vaccine which is part of our portfolio, then the rules, which you know well, that we do not accept parallel negotiations, these rules apply. So just to conclude, let us not forget that our strategy has enabled us to come up with a portfolio of 2.6 billion vaccines, this in the form of cooperation between the member states, the Commission of member states, and the vaccine manufacturers. But once again, member states are entitled to negotiate contracts for vaccines which are not part of our portfolio. Thank you very much. Thank you, Stefan.
It's on Northern Ireland, so we will come back to this later. Naomi, is your question on Northern... okay, Joe, you have a question on vaccines as well. Go ahead. But only on vaccines for the moment, please.
Yep. Hi, Eric. Is it still in the Commission's mind that Britain has a vaccine export ban or something that is tantamount to a vaccines export ban, please?
Come on, Joe. I mean, it's not because you're going to ask a question 10 times that we're going to be changing our views. I have no further comment to make on this issue. Thank you. Naomi, a question on vaccines.
My question is actually on quarantine. So it's a kind of travel question. Thanks.
We will come back to that at the end of the questions on vaccines. Sophie.
Ma question.
Now, I'd just like to have a follow-up question when it comes to the health ministers' meeting yesterday. Now, I know that it's a national competence and that member states can go beyond what EMA says. The Commissioner's speech spoke about a coordinated response, but despite her appeals for coordination, the responses were different in different member states. So I'd just like to know if Ms. Kyriakides was disappointed that her message wasn't taken on board. And Stefan, if you'll allow me a second question now, I know it was already asked, but discussions with AstraZeneca that are ongoing as a result of the letter that you sent them. Now, you're saying that after 20 days, something should happen according to procedure. How do you count those 20 days? If it's 20 working days, well, we will have a new phase kicking off. Did AstraZeneca actually give you any reassurances? Is there no longer any conflict with that company? Thank you.
Stefan.
Stefan, please. Thank you very much, Sophie, for those questions. Now, on the first question, it's true that Commissioner Kyriakides in the meeting asked member states to develop a consistent joint approach within the European Union on the basis of deliveries made by EMA. So if maybe member states could appoint experts to work with EMA in order to closely follow the situation and to develop some guidance and recommendations. This would be the case for different age groups, for example. Work is ongoing, and I think that's very important to note. That's important for us to reach a coherent approach. When it comes to the letter sent to AstraZeneca, well, the aim of this letter, and this has been explained a number of times, the aim of the letter is to try and find an agreement with the company on deliveries of a sufficient number of doses in a reasonable time frame. That's the aim, and it's on the basis of this objective that the Commission is working with the company, and that's why we announced this conflict resolution procedure. Work is ongoing. there are contacts between the company and the Commission, but at this stage I'm not able to give you any more information. The aim obviously is to reach this agreement. Thank you.
Merci. Tommaso.
Thank you. Tommaso.
Bonjour, merci.
Yes, good day, and thank you. It's a follow-up question to what my colleague asked about the letter that the Commission sent to AstraZeneca 20 days ago. In the contract, it specifies that after 20 days, there should be a meeting between the Commission and the company management to resolve the issue in an amicable fashion. Has this meeting taken place yet? Stefan, I don't know if you have anything to add to what you said in reply to Sophie. Well, I'm afraid not. We don't comment on discussions or negotiations which are underway with the companies concerned. I would just reiterate what I said earlier. Contacts are underway between the Commission and the company in order to seek an amicable solution, but I'm afraid I can't go into any more detail at this point on the current status of the negotiations. Thank you. Thank you, Christian. You have a question on the...
So, Christian, do you have a question on vaccines or on the JCPOA? So, please just take the floor only if it's on vaccines. Yes, it's on vaccines. Just... now, I've understood that for the certificate, only vaccines approved by the EMA would be recognised. Obviously, the Commission is guiding this. So what's the point of being vaccinated with a vaccine that hasn't been approved? Would that just undermine the whole system and cause problems for European citizens travelling in Schengen? And then when you have third countries coming in, what kind of vaccines are we going to recognise and not recognise? So I'm a bit lost. Just to remind you, the Commission proposal foresees that a member state may, once it recognises rights, or once it recognises a vaccine, even if that has not been approved by the EMA, it can do this, but in that case, it has to recognise it for all EU citizens. So you have an automaticity in terms of vaccines recognised by the EMA, and then there's the possibility by member states to recognise other vaccines. I hope that's clear. Francesco.
Francesco, you have the floor. Okay, we seem to have a problem. I go to Susanna. Go ahead. Go ahead. On vaccines.
Thank you, Susanna.
On vaccines.
Yes, it is kind of follow-up still on Sputnik. And Stefan just remind us of the huge amount of vaccines that are included in the European portfolio. So my question is, does the European Commission think that we need, or the member states need, other vaccines outside this portfolio, for instance, Sputnik or any other one, well, whatever, taking into account this huge figure that Stefan just mentioned? Thank you.
I think our position on this has been very clear from the outset. We have negotiated with the companies, and we're still, by the way, negotiating the finalization of contracts with 2 other companies, a vast amount of vaccines which are sufficient to vaccinate the whole European population. So the question at this stage is less one of extra doses of vaccines than ensuring that we actually are able to administer the vaccines, get them delivered and administered to people. But that being said, the European Union has developed a strategy, but there is a right of member states to pursue parallel actions if they see so fit. Our responsibility is to ensure that the vaccine strategy which we have put in place is successful and allows us to meet the objectives that we have set with the member states when it comes to vaccination. Right, I come back to Naomi now, who had a question on quarantines.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. Ireland is set to impose mandatory hotel quarantine requirements on arrivals from the EU, from other EU states. It's been suggested that this could be against free travel in the single market. Does the Commission have a comment on it, and what's your position?
Thank you. I pass the floor to Stéphane.
Hi, I can say a couple of things in terms of, well, the first thing is that as far as quarantine is concerned, we know that quarantine are matters of public health, and this is part of the national competence of the different member states. So that's something. Member states may decide to impose rules of quarantine when they believe there are causes for public health. As far as the free movement aspect is concerned, maybe my colleague Adalbert may wish to come in. But as far as quarantine is concerned, I think this is a matter of member state competence, where it is important that we follow a scientifically based approach and guidelines which are there coming from ECDC or EMA and other scientific institutes. Thank you.
Thank you. It would normally be a question for Christian, but I believe that Adalbert is replacing him.
That's correct. Thank you very much, Eric. And following up on what Stefan was saying, so he's indeed entirely correct that quarantine and testing requirements and the conditions for these are national public health measures which fall under the competence of the member states. However, from a free movement perspective, wherever such measures affect the citizens' right to free movement, they must comply with general principles of EU law, such as proportionality and non-discrimination. And as part of our coordinated approach to looking at those issues in the context of the pandemic, as you will certainly know, Naomi, the Council adopted a number of recommendations about restrictions to free movement, which were based on proposals by the Commission. The latest of these recommendations dates from the 1st of February this year, which addresses in particular the question of what to do with the problem of variants, as well as the new dark red color that was added to the common map of the epidemiological situation by the ECDC, indicating areas where the virus is circulating at very high levels. And this amended recommendation provides quite explicitly that travellers from such areas, so dark red areas within the EU, should be required to do a pre-departure test as well as undergo quarantine or self-isolation after arrival. And similarly, such measures could also apply to areas with high prevalence of variants of concern. And our understanding is that Ireland would require mandatory quarantine from travellers coming from areas with a high prevalence of variants of concern, and as a result, these measures would not appear to go beyond what is set out in the Council recommendation. Now, of course, as also in the implementation of these measures, Ireland would need to ensure that the general principles of EU law are complied with. However, as I said, in principle, this doesn't go beyond what's set out in the Council recommendations.
Naomi, you have a follow-up.
Yeah, just to be absolutely clear, so there's nothing special about hotel quarantine, so obliging people to do their quarantine in a hotel, not at home, and where they don't have a choice. There's nothing special about that which makes it against EU law if it's applied for people from other EU countries. There's nothing that distinguishes it or makes it disproportionate as compared to the quarantine which is more common across Europe, which is that you do it in your own home. Thanks.
Thank you. That's a question of proportionality, I guess. Adalbert, you want to add something on this?
Not specifically. I have to say that the Council recommendations specifically address more the principle than the implementation, and then it is up to each member state to make sure that the implementation and enforcement are applied in line with the general principles of EU law.
Thank you. Okay, we will take one last question on issues related to vaccines and vaccination because it's already 1:15. Regina.
Is again about the quarantine and the PCR test. Does the European Commission know that the Belgian authorities don't care about the ECDC map? Because we are continuing coming from countries, from regions like mine, that we are yellow, we are green, and they still are asking us to have a double test PCR, a quarantine. And do they realize, the Belgian authorities, that Brussels is not the capital of Belgium, it's the capital of Europe?
Well, let me specify that Brussels is certainly the capital of Belgium. That goes without saying. It also is the seat, one of the seats of European institutions, but that does not take away the fact that it is the very beautiful capital of one of our member states. Let's not forget that. On the issue of the ECDC map and its use by member states, I pass the floor to Stéphane and possibly to Adalbert.
Thank you. I don't think I have any specific comments to make on this. The ECDC map is indeed there to help member states to make sure that we have a coherent approach to things. But in the context of the movement from other member states to Belgium and the use of the map, and as to whether Belgium is following it or not, I'm afraid I do not have any comment to make.
Adalbert, you want to add something on this?
Yes, perhaps just to mention that this is an issue that the Commission is following very closely, and you may recall that we, as far back as in February, the Commission reminded all member states that they have agreed on a common approach to manage the restrictions to free movement in a coordinated manner. And also in February, we actually sent a number of specific letters raising our concerns to 6 member states, including also Belgium, which are currently applying stricter measures than what is provided for in the recommendation. In particular, issues such as bans on entering or leaving the country. And we remain in very close dialogue with the authorities of these member states, including of Belgium, in order to follow up on these concerns, in particular regarding the proportionality of the measures taken. We will continue to follow this closely as guardian of the treaties, and also to make sure that the coordinated approach that has been agreed is followed by the member states.
Thank you very much. So I close the health chapter, and we go back to Joe, who had a question on Northern Ireland, I believe.
Thanks, Eric. Let's see if you answer this one. So on Northern Ireland, you put out your statement, but I'm just wondering, have we got any more kind of practical terms? Is Maroš Šefčovič going to travel to Belfast? The Northern Ireland Secretary of Great Britain is doing so today to join in with the talks. I'm just wondering if the Commission is going to play a more active role in the talks, given the fact that the police chiefs in Northern Ireland have blamed the protocol as one of the reasons for why the kind of tensions and unrest have kind of broken out in recent days. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question. I have nothing to add to the very clear statement that we made and the call on the end to violence in Northern Ireland. As to issues related to the implementation of the protocol itself as a distinct issue, let me turn to Dan to see if he has any specific news on this.
Hi, Eric, and hi, Joe. Thanks very much for your question. As indeed, in terms of the implementation of the protocol, absolutely as a distinct issue to what we have just been discussing there. I think you know well, first of all, that the protocol was agreed to protect peace and stability in Northern Ireland, to protect the Good Friday Belfast Agreement, to protect North-South cooperation, to avoid a hard border. All of that was done for those goals, and it now needs to be implemented jointly by both sides. I think you know that we, the EU, stand ready to find swift, pragmatic solutions within the framework of the protocol. For that reason, that's why we said that the UK needed to provide a credible roadmap with clear deliverables and milestones for the implementation of the protocol. I can confirm that on the 31st of March, we received a document from the UK entitled a draft EU-UK work programme. We're now assessing that. And in terms of contacts at the moment, we have technical level contacts ongoing between both sides, but that's all that I would have to say for the moment.
Thank you. Okay, we will take one last question today, and it goes to Christian on the GCPOA. Christian, tu as la dernière question.
Last question to you, Christian. I had to turn off the camera, but I hope you can hear me. I just wanted to know if you could fill us in on the negotiations in Vienna concerning the US's return to the negotiations on the nuclear sector. I'd just like to know whether the joint meeting at directors level has been confirmed for Friday. I'd just like to know whether the experts from both groups are at work today. Has any progress been made? And I'd just like to ask whether one can begin today thinking about the likelihood of a joint committee meeting at ministerial level chaired by Mr. Borrell, or is it still premature? Thank you, Christian, for all these questions. I will try to recall all the questions you put. As you said, the mixed committee, as part of the JCPOA framework, met in Vienna in a physical meeting on Tuesday, and it is chaired by Enrico Mora on behalf of the High Representative, with representatives of China, France, Germany, the UK, and Iran. At the level of vice foreign affairs ministers, political directors, it was a constructive meeting. There is a clear ambition for a joint process, and there's a sense of urgency. So everyone is very serious about this exercise. The mixed committee launched the work by two working parties, one on the nuclear element and the other on lifting sanctions, and with a view to finding full return and full implementation of the GCPOA. The working groups, as you know, are chaired by the European Union as coordinators and will report to the joint committees. Any final decision will be made by the joint committee on a consensual basis. Separate contacts are taking place with the United States with a view to feeding into the work of the experts working group. These experts are present in Vienna and will continue working, and the European Union, as the coordinator, will do its best to put the GCPOA back on track. Thanks to this work, our goal is clear: to return to a full implementation with respect for the agreement by all the parties. As regards your question about possible mixed committee meeting tomorrow, Friday, we will communicate this were it to be the case, and we will send out an advisory or an alert, which you will probably receive to that effect, were it to be the case. Thank you very much. Let us close now our daily midday press briefing, and we will resume tomorrow for the last briefing of the week. You can always contact us bilaterally if you wish. Thank you very much.